Right. And you have a lot of animals in the background, huh, Justin? Oh, hey, the your mic.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah, your mix reverberating as well.
Oh, oh, okay. So let me wait. Let me make sure my let me uh let me check my setup here real quick too. Okay. Uh, let me go. Um, yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's still reverberating.
Let me let me get should I get my headphones? Let me get my headphones real quick then. Hey, Justin, can you say something?
Uh, yeah, still reverberating. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of background noise with your I guess yeah, you just have a lot of animals at your house. So hey, so let's get started real quick. This is we don't have a whole lot of people here, but whoever's out there, hello. And this is our weekly tokenomics and DAX call. And so we can just discuss Justin maybe our plans. How's it going, Mel? Hey, you got your picture on, which is great. So I know you're a regular here, so it's great to see you. Yeah. So and if you ever want to go on video, just let us know, Mel, and you can join in on our conversation. So Justin and I were just trying to discuss what we can what we can talk about in future episodes. I did want to cover one topic which was interesting today. And that topic is about trying to figure out how to fairly split up equity allocation in an early stage company. And I think this is a conversation that is difficult for a lot of people. And I'm hoping that there's a good solution. And so I wanted to kind of share an idea and see what you think of it, Justin. So the idea is that a company starts with just an idea, just a brand, maybe reputation of the founders. There's no real work done in the early stages. The ideas are very, very valuable. They could be a patent that's exclusive. So ideas could be a dominant part of a business. It may not be it could be a smaller part of the business if it's more operational. It's just you need to execute something, right? So the idea is in the beginning to try to figure out a value for the very inception of a company. And in the ICO space, it's been the white paper, ideas, the team, like the reputation of the team, any other assets, if they've created something, if they've created some product or MVPs that could add to an initial value. But beyond that, why would it be valued? Why would if we could start at that point, it's like I think it's a good starting point. And then you could have future value that in future work contribute to it, where people earn equity or cash based on their future work. So if you're a founder and you become an employee afterwards, like you have this initial idea, but then you start contributing afterwards, and then so you accrue equity over time. And then the cash component is just another additional factor that can easily be interchanged with equity, right? There's a cash value of equity at any given point in time. So in the beginning, if you put cash that's required for starting up the company, let's say, you add up all the ideas in the white paper and you try to put a value on it. Let's just put a number on it. Let's say 250,000, right? Someone puts in cash at that initial stage, 50,000. Then you have like $300,000 worth of value, like $250,000 worth of white paper ideas, brand, etc. $50,000 worth of cash, and I see a little puppy here. It's a cat. Okay, so $50,000 worth of capital, and then the post money valuation would be 300,000 because you have 250,000 and 50,000 added to it. So 300,000 is the post money, after the money valuation of this initial company, and then future contributions would be based on whatever people are valuing it as it progresses from the early stage to a more mature stage over time. And so that's kind of the idea. Like, what are your impressions about like looking at that first and just trying to evaluate, okay, what's the white paper worth? What are these ideas worth? What's the reputation worth? All the ideas first, not taking into consideration anything to do with what people are going to contribute or what responsibilities people have. Just starting with that, splitting it up a certain percentage for everyone who's contributed to this initial phase. They could all drop off. They've done their contributions at that point. There's no obligations after that. But most of the time, you have most of those founders also contributing in the future as well. But then now that's also like, maybe if you do it hourly or you do it based on milestone, whatever it is, your rewards are accrued over time. But it's distinct. It's like you separate what exists from what is contributed on an ongoing basis. And at that point, it's either, it's mainly, if we're just looking at equity, it's just equity rewards. But, cash is also might be necessary. And that's also a contribution that's made that at a certain value at any given point in time that can be easily swapped for this, the equity token. And so it is formulaic, like over time, you can always, at any given point in time, see what the value of the company is worth, maybe 6 months down the road. The contributions, you could just, peg it to some hourly rate if you wanted to, just to make it easy, or based on a milestone, and whatever their contributions on, they just earn the dollar value of equity at that point in time. And so it's like there's a model that just is formulaic. It just grows. It should make sense. I think it's based on meritocracy, and just whoever contributes whatever market rate they are contributing, they earn those rewards. Now, how is that, like, just as an overall concept? Are there any questions from you guys, Justin?
Yeah, I think it's an exciting prospect. I wonder, like, would this go on indefinitely, like forever? The pie is getting bigger. Do you still use this method the whole time, or does it eventually stop and then you go to a different system? Because I guess, like, a lot of startups these days, they start up doing a slicing pie kind of methodology, and you have contributions in terms of money and work, but then they, like, even because I've been talking to EOS Detroit, and they use this method, but actually I think in a year or two they're going to kind of stop it. I'm not sure why, but for some reason then the slices are distributed, I guess. Do you think it can go on forever?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think when you become a mature company, there's less, I guess maybe, yeah, there's less risk, and it's possible to do it though, because most tech companies at least have some form of options that they give to employees. So I do see, and even established companies do give a certain number of shares. But at that point, maybe it's the idea that, hey, you can take the cash and you can buy the shares in the market anyway. So it's like it's liquid at that point, and maybe there's less of a need to do that. But it's kind of interesting to think about, because what we're doing is we're all in the crypto world. You have immediate liquidity, and that kind of happens anyway. So I see that it can go on forever, but maybe the necessity to do it is not not as great. So I do see, as it matures, maybe that's just less of a focus. So in the growth stages, there's this idea that you can use equity to substitute for cash. Maybe that's the idea, but so yeah, it'll be interesting. So as long as you're growing, there's probably potential for using equity. But once it's kind of a mature, just cash flow company, maybe it's unnecessary at that point. It's just like everyone who are owners will just get dividends, you know. So
you're right, actually. Like companies like Facebook and Google and Nike, they give off like a small amount of someone's pay in stock. I don't know anyone who actually works out that side of things, though. I'm kind of interested in the centralized world, what percentage of their growth is done through issuing of shares that go directly to their employees. Like, is it a set percentage of kind of the money that they're raising? Instead of paying people an extra bump up in wage, they're distributing it in stock. Because like every year, companies, are raising tons of money. Well, if they're in a growth stage anyway, like a company like Tesla, raises or kind of take loans via a bank. But then, yeah, I wonder, and what is their incentive to do that? Is it to offset the need to pay their employees more, or is it just to incentivize to incentivize hard work and actually have skin in the game for the employees themselves? So their hard work results in a higher share price, and therefore, that's a incentive for them. That'd be interesting.
yeah, it's I think it's a couple things where those that what you mentioned, to incentivize them, align themselves with the company, and also for an alternative way of raising money. I think those are the two, and then maybe a third is that they it's almost like a handcuff, especially if they give the grant stock option grants. Those are more like kind of not handcuffs, but just yeah, that kind of like handcuffs to kind of tie an employee, and so there's two different types of options, right? The grants, like they say, hey, over 4 years, like you accrue a certain amount of options that if as long as you work there, you'll get. The other options that they give out, I forget what, it's essentially you get a certain pricing for these options, and you can exercise them when they're kind of in the money. So they'll give you kind of a price that you can decide whether or not to accept them or not.
That is smart, isn't it? Because paying your employees their wage, and then actually you're taking some of the money back. You're getting your employees to invest back into the company. So it effectively means that what you're paying
True.
out in wages is actually comes down in the the net effect, because the value comes back to them. It's kind of it's a cool concept, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we could employ in terms of tokenomics and building companies as well. Instead of just giving the stock, or not the stock, the stake in the token economy, make it easy for them to buy back in, or encourage them to buy back in. Maybe make that part of the tokenomic model and give a percentage off the I guess, because they could be taking part of the inflation and allowing contributors to buy at a lower rate. I don't know how that would work, but it could be an interesting tokenomic concept.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it is interesting too. It is usually at a discount when people kind of buy back into these options, I think. So so there is, but there is a good it does provide some support, I'm sure. So it's kind of interesting. So and Mel talks about a Japanese company business strategies. They look at their employees as all equal and values. The guy who made Panasonic had a 200-year plan to try to give back to a society to remove poverty, etc. Similar. So okay, this is more like socialism. I think hey, it's an alternative perspective to have. I do think, though, more capitalist models where there is, to me, is more meritocratic, and that you're trying to incentivize kind of good work. And so I think there's value, some value in kind of trying to produce some kind of fairness and equality in terms, but then on the flip side, I think it kind of can, from a business standpoint, it doesn't create the incentive structures that are required to outcompete, I think, other businesses and outperform and provide the best value that they can for customers. So I do think it could work in some types of business models, but I'm generally I'm in favor of more capitalist systems, more, because I think that's more meritocratic. You just get, like, whatever you're putting in, whatever value you're providing, there should be some correlation with your rewards and compensation. So but culturally, maybe there's some advantages for trying to kind of creating some kind of at least perceived fairness, even though I feel like so yeah, this will so it's interesting. So Mel says, okay, capitalism is not so great when rich get richer and poor get poorer. I think there are some probably not so much free market. It's like activity itself that creates this discrepancy. I think it's supposed to raise all boats. But what happens is, I think what happens is it's not pure capitalism or pure free markets. I think companies take advantage of governments and try to be anti-competitive, or try to create anti-competitive, or have government create anti-competitive policies. So they become monopolies. And they monopolize whatever their industry is. So I think that's probably where it starts to get away from the meritocracy part of things. And so that's to me, that's not like the pure form of free markets and capitalism. There's a stigma behind the word anyway, so maybe I should just say free markets. To me, that's a better just free markets to decide like what people get paid. It's just, to me, more a natural process. So maybe I won't use capitalism. I'll just use a different word. And so, because there's so much other I think connotations around the word. So anyway, so back to the ideas. I wanted to talk about, like, how do you value ideas then? Like, what is an idea worth? Like, what is a brand worth? What is a brand name worth? What is just a white paper worth, because ICOs really, that's what people were really investing in, because I don't think anyone's really delivered like even a tiny fraction of what they promised, right?
No, that's
so 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 okay, so that's why I got interested in EOS giving power back to the people, and I think it's true, and I agree with that, Mel. So then I'm all for that, but maybe just the process, and maybe we shouldn't even talk about the language, but I think there's the goal is what I think we all kind of are supportive of. So we do want to give power back to the people. We think it is inherently giving back to people, and whatever you call it, whatever the methods or processes is, I think that's the goal. So we share the goals. So
yeah, I guess in the example that Mel was talking about of the head of Panasonic putting together a 200-year plan to give money back to society and remove poverty. I think my problem with that is that it doesn't fix the problem at the source. Like you're sort of band-aiding it by giving away kind of money. The money, the main issue, I guess, is the structure that allows people to become poor, and that's ingrained in the system itself. So the economic model, and yeah, we have like tons of examples of that, like what the Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I think it's called, where they're trying to get wealthy people to give money back. But the problem is that encourages the system to stay the same. Sometimes you've got to let things get really bad, so then there's a revolution. And I guess like what we're doing in EOS is hopefully that revolution. So the fact that there will be all these tokenomic models, which are basically economic models, all competing with each other, people will get to choose the fairest model. And if they don't think something is fair, they'll move to another model. But I guess there is some addressing of that with the UBI that's been talked about, where kind of some of the inflation that gets redistributed back to unique accounts, all the users, that's something that will hopefully help. But I think the free market competition, and I guess that's what you're referring to in terms of capitalism, is hopefully going to create the solution. Because at the moment, like we call what we have a free market economy, but we only really have like 300 and however many countries there are in the world, we only have that many markets, and they're highly controlled by centralized authorities. But with kind of what we're enabled to do in terms of tokenomics and spinning up economies, we will have a truly free economy, I believe.
Yeah, that's the hope, and I think it's exciting to be involved in it. Unfortunately, I'm kind of like, we're in a bear market too, and I'm wondering realistically, because I've been. This is just a kind of a side note off of everything, is that we got into this big boom, and now we're kind of on the downtrend. But I think the overall economy is actually maybe driving a lot of this as well, because the overall economy in the last 10 years has been in or well, at least let's say 9 years, has been going straight up, recovering from 08, 09. And usually when you have such a long bull run, that doesn't last forever. So I think we're kind of seeing the early stages, unfortunately, of a recession, actually. And I'm wondering if the crypto bull market was kind of also influenced by a kind of more of the speculative tech money somewhat, and is now leading kind of the downtrend in a way of the broader market. And that's what I'm like considering. Okay, so we have to prepare ourselves regardless that things can get a lot more bumpier than even now, as we And so so fundamentally, if we're, this is the time when we have to kind of bear down and just fundamentally, find out like what works. And if we do that, then I think we'll come out of it, strong. A lot of the best companies come out during tough times, right? So I think we just it's just another just maybe a side note here when I'm looking at the bear market. And I haven't even looked recently, but that's what I think a lot of people are probably a little bit concerned with these days. So again, it's yeah. So anyways, so back to more philosophical and as things, so yeah, so Mel hopes, the URI will hopes the value of the URI will not be distributed when the price is so low. That's funny. So but hey, true. If people keep the URI, maybe it's a good thing when they get it when it's low, and they can just keep it and then
will it?
Yeah, but unfortunately, the reality is people will sell, like especially in tough times. But maybe that'll help them as well, like even if it's not as much, So, yeah. So anyway, so back to the ideas. I'm just trying to figure out. Okay, so like for like any company, maybe just for example, let's say someone wanted to create. I'm just throwing out an example. Let's say a blockchain LinkedIn, let's say, right? Like he just uses something and then you create a blockchain version. I don't know if it's a great use case, but let's just say, right? So someone has an idea, but how much is that worth? Because, okay, well, this already exists. You're just putting a blockchain on it. But I don't know. For the ICOs, people would say, oh, this is a great idea. And they'd value it a lot. So, but what is that worth? Like, if you put a number on something like that, like what range would you have for just an idea, a vision of that?
Yeah, I guess like it has to be a bit more than like this. It has to be like the full business development plan of how it's going to play out, and the model, the market strategy. I guess the idea has to be all of that.
Okay, so it's just not purely an idea; it's the plan for the and the implementation of that idea. So let's extend it further and just say, okay, the idea maybe not so much, and just this whole plan, because let's say there could be competing plans. Someone has, blockchain LinkedIn A, and another has blockchain LinkedIn B.
It's true. One could be worth zero, and one could be worth billions.
Exactly. Okay.
For me, it's a bit similar to, like you're trying to raise money from VCs in the current kind of world. Like you have to really be able to sell that idea. You have to be able to sell that it's going to work. You're going to have to sell that you're the person that can drive that effort. You can get the right people on board, or you already have those people on board. It's based on your track record, so your reputation. So that's where like a reputation system will come in. Because it could be like the simplest idea, but you're Elon Musk or someone who is a proven executor, then that idea is worth a lot more. So it really goes down to your pitch, like, or in our world, it's like your white paper, your website, how you sell it. Like it's kind of hard. Like I guess the person who comes up with the idea is the person that can sort of set the tokenomic model for building it. So they can put a value out there of what they think their idea is worth as a percentage of the pie. And, it'll have to be enticing. So yeah, if it's just the idea itself, then they probably can only take a small percentage for people to actually jump on and help them.
So, okay, that's a good point there. So let's kind of dig into that a little bit. So you mentioned team. and a track record. And that's what actually VCs look at a lot. So I guess the idea that, okay, hey, we're trying to kind of value this just initial founder's pie, right? And the idea in a plan, a full-fledged plan, is very important, but who's going to execute it is also very important, right? Or one of the keys that people look at. What's your team, right? So what's your track record? So and Mel, like we're just assuming that everyone's going to be in the blockchain space, so we won't be able to differentiate blockchain, at least for in this context. But people will have to know that you have people with blockchain experience to execute, I guess. So that might be a differentiator. So how much of it is team then, and how much of it is like, and then because originally, like, unless the team is committed fully, like they could leave too, they could drop off. So I'm trying to find a number for the very beginning, where it's just like you have an idea, you have this team, you have everything set up, and there should be a value, like an initial value, and then all contributions that happen should be kind of added in afterwards. That's kind of how I'm trying to separate it. So the initial value, okay, sure, if you have like this team, some people can drop off too, but maybe most likely most will stick around. But it's almost the idea that you have these like you have something there in the very beginning that you want to value. How much of it is the white paper and the idea then, or all the details of it? It's like, oh, this is business strategy, this is the execution plan, maybe some other things about the go-to-market strategy and things like that, and how to scale. And then it's just the people. Like, what percentage would you put on the people? What percentage would you put on this larger business plan and vision plan? Justin, anybody? I'm just wondering if we're doing, like, we're approaching it, because I'm trying to do this actually. I'm trying to make this I'm actually, for the businesses and projects I'm involved with, I'm trying to kind of actually use this model. I just want to get feedback about, okay, like, where am I, where is it making sense? Where is it maybe not making sense? Because I was thinking, okay, well, what do people physically bring to the table? Like, okay, maybe someone creates a website, it's worth a certain amount. Some person kind of sets up, like, let's say some part of the technology. Some person comes up with like this white paper and vision. This all a team, like reputation of the team. So how do you just kind of start splitting up like the initial pie is where I'm trying to go. So maybe back to like team, and then maybe the overall vision and plan. Like, what should be given to each of the team members just for being part of this project, versus like the big plan of like, this is a blockchain LinkedIn. We're going to attack this market, and this is exactly how we're going to do it, or this is the plan. And it's like, maybe it's like Satoshi white paper or whatever. Like, white papers are again valuable in that context, right? It's like this vision.
Yeah, it's super difficult. I just don't even know how to, like, I mean, you could just pay them a rate for their hours and time, but then I think what you're saying is that probably wouldn't be enough.
Yeah,
it could be a very high rate, because I think we've talked about like doing a slicing pie and just having people working at set rates. So if they're a developer, they get $60 per hour. Maybe white paper writer should get like a higher amount, like 200 or 500 or 1,000 an hour. But it's
and I think I think that's one model, and you can start with zero, and you can just say all the future contribution. You start with zero, and then people's contribution. And then, so we're kind of skipping a little bit and saying, okay, you probably have come with at least this master plan. And then that's where you distinguish. You didn't go from zero exactly. We're kind of going from, like, let's say the first month of brainstorming and coming up with a plan of like, this is what I want to do. like a blockchain LinkedIn, right? And this is like what's decided. So it started from zero for sure, like at way back in, but we're just saying at this point. So at that point, and then the other thing I'll mention is the hourly rate for like white paper stuff is, to me, a little bit not aligned with big ideas. Like, because it's like one idea.
It's formed over years and years, that idea, and you know, that's what makes it hard to put a set rate on things, isn't it? Because it's so much more complicated than how many hours did you do. It's all the experiences you've had in life that come up to that gave you that idea. It's not as simple as that, or it just could be an epiphany that you have, you know. So it's very, very difficult. I mean,
yeah. So someone was telling me some guy like that she knew really got paid for like very you know, like sporadic and just short work. Like essentially he'd create a master plan. He was so good at creating master plan, it'd take him like an hour to kind of put everything together, and he'd be paid like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands or something, you know, crazy. That was like his whole salary would just be this 1 hour of work, essentially, of creating this thing that he had a track record of actually being good at developing, like this strategy, let's say strategy idea. So I do believe in that. Like, to me, that's the whole Steve Jobs thing. He knew, he had a vision of what things should be like. And maybe it wasn't 100% kind of all defined in the beginning, but this vision and this plan and this idea of like, okay, this is, you know, this iPhone is going to be in existence, even though there's another history behind the iPhone. But anyways, regardless, like, let's assume that there was like kind of an original idea. But you know, that at least being convinced that that's you know, going to revolutionize the world, and having the conviction, I think there's incredible value there. So execution is like, so there's a balance. Like, I think it's like, to me at least, it's like 50-50 between ideas and execution. You need a strategy. You can't just execute randomly, right? You need strategy. There's a lot of people who are good at executing regardless, but they'll execute like randomly. And so it'll be, you know, it's just like luck of you know, the draw if they're going to be successful or not. But if you have a strategy and you have execution, then you're like, the probability of success is far greater, right? So I do think, and some people, that's why there's this argument. It's like, oh, ideas were worthless. That's what kind of this recent trend I've heard of. Like, okay, ideas are worthless. No, I think like, you know, they may in some contexts not be worth as much, but I think they're incredibly important. Like, if you kind of are, you have this vision and you stick to it, like, you know, people talk about pivoting, but most successful companies actually, at least overall, stick to their main vision. Like, I think 87% of unicorns stick to their original vision of what they,
wow,
or 83%. That's very hard. Yeah. So there's this whole lean startup iteration kind of concept, but then statistics actually show the biggest companies actually, at least, you know, had the original, stuck with their, at least their bigger vision. They might have iterated like tactically, but the overall is like, hey, you just stick to like a good idea, and then you believe it through is important.
So let me ask you, because you guys developed a solution around this for the hackathon, what is the current method that you guys are employing within your DApp that you guys ran through at the hackathon?
So just for some background, I guess we created, we were actually going to create a DAO builder, right? That was the original idea. But for our hackathon, we changed it to create the consumer facing part of the business, which is like, if you're a company, you need people to work for your company, right? Or join your team. So on the flip side, you need, like, our whole thing was, you know, a job, like a a way to get a job easily. Essentially, we created a platform to make it easy to get a job based on your track record that's on the blockchain. So you build your track record on the blockchain, and then jobs will come easy to you once you build the track record. So that was the overall concept. So we didn't do so much the company side, maybe, but I think you heard that, right? Like you heard our job kind of application.
Yeah.
So I think
it's specific for a blockchain kind of tokenomic model startup, or it actually could be used for companies in the traditional world as well. It allows any company or organization to be built via, getting the right roles that are required to put it all together.
Yeah. I think it could apply to all businesses, but just for practical reasons, it would probably start with blockchain type startups because they already understand that this immutable track record is useful, right? And that there's probably going to be some cryptocurrency and tokenomics involved with compensation and whatnot. So I think, yeah, broadly, it could apply broadly, but just when you kind of dig in, the specifics will probably require some level of blockchain familiarity. And that's so anyways, so that's the, so kind of back to the, I think the question was how that applied to ideas versus execution. For that, it would just be like, it's a little separate. The reason why is
the idea had already been formulated at that point.
Yeah, so it's more the company builder, DAO builder, where it's more relevant to, which is the reason why we're like, I'm also trying to figure out like a tool to help people determine this valuation of ideas versus future work. So,
in Telos, it's interesting because Douglas Horn wrote the original white paper, and he's probably he had most of the ideas that formulated the beginning of Telos. And from memory, in the slicing pie model, he actually advocated for not taking any slices for the writing of the white paper, which was really kind of generous of him. He didn't need to do that. But as the person who comes up with the idea, he has been incredibly involved in the whole process all the way through. He's like the godfather of the project.
Douglas, you're talking about?
Yeah, Douglas Horn.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, he's going to get paid a good amount of the slices because of that. He's been very involved. But I guess in a future world, maybe the founding idea doesn't necessarily need to be there the whole time, and that's where I think you're coming from, where people can do that business development and that idea and concept creation, and they can move on to another project and do the same thing, and they can become known as this person who can come up with master plans basically over and over. And it, I guess, in theory, will mean that more amazing economies or companies can come to fruition because of this, because people can specialize in just that part of the process.
I agree with that, and I think that's definitely I think that makes sense. One thing I would also maybe add to that is that it could also, having someone long-term in the company that also has these ideas, part of the executives who also have these ideas also is important. So sometimes you run the risk, if you have this kind of master plan, that if you're not involved in the ongoing business, then they could maybe not understand the reasons why, or maybe learn something that you can at least do some slight pivots on, so that so I think it is important to have kind of the master plan person who creates a master plan also involved in the operation. It could be of significant help to have them be part of the business, even as an executive or whatnot. I mean, Steve Jobs was an executive as well as having this master plan, right? So in that respect, I do see those two alternatives, like where, yeah, you could just you could have some guy who has this master plan who gets 90% of the ideas right and then is not involved anymore. I think that could work. But then there's the other side of it where, okay, you kind of need the guy, that guy to also help with, ongoing strategy, so there may be a need for that. So so Mel asks, is this a tool that manages process or tasks within a job to a resource? So this company builder tool that we're talking about, or DAO builder tool, it will should help with some of the processes within a task, but we'll see exactly how detailed or involved the tool is. It'll probably start with the basics, of like, hey, this is what we need, a description of it, and whoever's managing that particular job function, like let's say a CTO is trying to create a job description for developers to help with a particular project. They'll have a job description, some certain requirements, and in terms of process, there might be a tool to help with the process of developing the software out as well. So, and then Justin says, from my experience, one of the most important things for the type of model is a very solid, well-defined ahead of time dispute resolution system. Externally sourced would be even better than internal dispute resolution. So dispute resolution will always kind of be part of it, but I think that's going to, it's okay to assume that disputes will be a fraction of if you build the tools right, it'll be a fraction of what people, I think need, because generally if you have like a employment contract, things can come up, but generally you just need to get paid. You need to do like at a certain amount of time. There's certain performance metrics, and it's at will employment, so that you can leave anytime and the employer could fire you at any time. And so to me, in that context, there's not that much dispute resolution required for those kinds of activities. When there is a dispute, there should be a way to try to resolve it, especially on the blockchain, because everything's transparent and your reputation is more important than one dispute. So I'm sure there'll be a way to hash out differences between employer and company, or employee and company. Okay, so yeah, so in that context, going back to the white paper, a vision, idea, team, and all of that. Let's say this LinkedIn idea, we'll just go with that. It's not that breakthrough of an idea. It may not be as relevant to of a blockchain use case, but it could be cool. So there's upsides possibly, but it may not be may not be that successful of an app. But like, what would you put on let's say if you were trying to value between white paper, what number would you put in if you threw out a number of like this initial idea plan? Is it few hundred thousand? Is it zero? Like what? Anything in between? Like people who say, oh, it's just all about execution, they would say that's like zero, right? That's what they'll say. But then some people say, okay, maybe this idea and plan and the intricacies and the strategy is very, very important. Maybe it's a few hundred thousand. I don't know. Like where would you, like if you throw a number out there, like where would you fall? Like what would you throw out there as a baseline?
I think the idea and business development side, all that in total would probably be 50% to me, and then 50% for the executors. Like, in an example like a decentralized Uber, like that would be, well, actually, that would be totally different. Maybe it's different for everything, because like something like a decentralized Uber, like you have so many people involved in the work, the executing in a way, because there's drivers and that sort of thing, and arbitrators. Like actually, the problem in the centralized world is that maybe the company that organizes everything maybe gets too much. It really, but in terms of idea, like I don't know, we've seen like probably 5% being given in a lot of contexts. I don't know if that's too low or high. I truly think like maybe just market forces have to decide this.
So yeah, no, but the market forces is like always kind of what people agree to in the beginning and early stages if they have this discussion. And so going back to the 50-50, I like that idea. So let's say it's a founding team of 3 people. Their execution over a 1 year period is going to be, let's say 2 people get, like, one gets 175K a year, one gets 150K a year, one gets just to make it easy, like 125K a year. So that's the standard salaries for what their C-level executive for a startup. I think it actually should be higher, but let's just say the C-level executive startup, our annual salary is 125, 150, 175. That's 450 total. So 450 of 1 year's work is so is that, like, if you do 50-50, like it's a long-term plan, but let's just say a plan for 1 year, like you have this master plan for a year, and then that needs to be executed. That's 450 for this idea white paper plan, and then 450 for 3 people executing that plan, and then a total of over a year, 900,000 in kind of this input value, cost value of a system. That's one way. I mean, that's to me. But then it's like, okay, 450,000. That's a lot. Like, who's, like, is that just purely this this idea? This maybe it's okay. Aside from the vision and white paper, then how much is it based on the reputation of the people there? So, like, the team is a large part of this original vision that we're trying to separate from the execution. We said this execution is going to do $450,000 of equity work, right? Our work, like executive work, I call it. So 450,000. So we have that. So 450,000. Like, how much of that 450,000 is the idea of white paper? How much is just the reputation of the team out of that 450 initial founder's value, or this idea's value? Does the question make sense? Or
yeah, maybe rephrase it. Sorry.
So we're trying to separate, like, this future 1 year contribution of people with, like, the original initial idea, plan, strategy, that's independent of, like, future work. It's just like what exists right now to create the initial value of something. So does the people involved, do the people involved with it, I mean, just for being involved, should they get credit for that? Like, or is it just the actual plan itself, the ideas and the plan and all the white paper, what's written out, that's worth $450,000 in that context, or in that situation, if we split 50-50?
I think it's just too hard. Like, and the thing is, like, where do you get where does the money come from? Like, because wouldn't it be percentages? Like, assuming that it's worth like $900,000, like that's value.
So let's just, so all you're doing right now is, this is just a cash value. So let's say there's no money involved. It's just the equity value, how you split the tokens, essentially.
Yeah.
So it would be split, like half of the tokens would be for the founders, and half would be for the 3 executing over that year. So it would be 450,000 worth of tokens that are worth $1, and 450,000 tokens, for that 1 year. And that's the percentage split. So 50% again of the tokens is for feature, and 450 is just for the white paper and ideas, strategy, and all of that. So, but there could be no cash value involved until someone says, I want to invest. I want to invest. And, you know, you're going to say, I'm going to invest, but that's going to, like, so if the ideas are worth 450, if an investor comes in and says, I want to invest 50,000, now you have 50,000 of capital, 450,000 worth of ideas, 500,000 in total of value in the beginning, and 50, that's 5% of post money, 5%. So the investors get 5% of the company. The ideas and the founders, whoever, they get, you know, 450,000 in equity. So that's how. And then now you have cash that you could pay people with, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how it works. So Mel says, to get the right people on board, the majority of people want to be paid normally, as if there is a risk of the project failing, unless they feel so strongly in the project. So that's true. So in that case, what you would have to do is raise 450,000 at that point in cash, right? And let's say the 3 employees could get no equity at that point. They'll just get, you could pay them all in cash. So you get an investor putting 450,000, you putting 450,000 in the idea, and 450,000 being paid to the employees. They get no equity, but they're still working for the year. So the investors get 50% equity. The initial founders and ideas people get 50%, and the executors get nothing and no equity, just get cash. But then it could be a combination of either. You can just swap between the two. So if people are okay with equity, you don't have to raise as much money, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So I think that you know, I think the ideas part is a big question, though, because Mel, you said previously, you said, hey, there should be 0 value unless you have a good history of previous products. So the track record. Oh, let me. So the track record. So the track record is incredibly important, right, Mel? So, but in the beginning, how do you separate that? Because I'm wondering, okay, you have a reputation you bring to the project, people see that, but you're not maybe tied to the company unless you're on you have some kind of vesting schedule for options. I just want a clean separation where it's like you're just investing in this original like phase, just ideas, white paper, vision, brand, nothing to do with future stuff. And if we can clearly separate those, it makes the valuation part easier, the valuation of, you know, capital investment and how you kind of how do you exchange between equity, cash, and work. I think that just makes it a lot easier. Small percentage is bonus, like shares in the business value in the future, I guess. Okay, so yes, maybe the executives, like in this case, will get some shares. Like, so let's say if they're not like startups, they're just executives that just plain execute. They're not even interested in so much equity, but they can get maybe a bonus in equity. So maybe like 80% of their pay is cash, 20% is bonus in shares. So I could see that model too. Most startups actually are, you know, they don't even pay themselves. Most of it is like sweat equity and just all tokens, or not tokens, but all shares. So I assume, you know, from a bootstrappy startup perspective, that's going to be the case. But I see for other businesses, if you just almost want to hire the executives to execute on a plan, that, you know, they can take a super majority of their pay in cash compensation, and some just a you know, smaller fraction in terms of shares. So okay, so Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm trying to identify. Like, if we get to that point where everyone seems to understand the initial value of a company is based on like more of these ideas, strategy, brand, all of this, then I think we could come to a consensus better about like how to split the early equity, and then and then also figure out like for future contributions how that you know, how that fits into the original kind of um, value of a company. So uh, anyways, any other questions, guys? Sorry, this is probably a more personal thing. I'm just trying to get some feedback about, yeah, this, just how to do this, because there's a lot of projects I'm starting to get involved with where we have to hash these things out, and I think it's important. Like, how do you split the initial equity between a new project, a new startup, and you know, having an agreement is early on is incredibly important. Um, so, all right. Still waiting for Justin, but yeah, the radical transparency, Justin. I'm totally with that. That's part of, I think, you know, Ray Dalio's radical transparency. Justin's a big proponent of that, and I'm Justin Buck, and I'm also a big proponent. I do fully agree. Uh, yeah, just be honest with each other before you sign something. Okay. Yeah, yep. That's great. Like, just be honest with everything. So I think maybe that's a good approach to make sure everyone's watched that video, is on board with radical transparency. So when we come to those discussions, that everyone's just really just speaking their mind. I think that's important. Like, if someone thinks this is valued an X amount, someone else thinks it's worth like 10 times more, like, you'll know, hey, okay, so why do you think it's worth that much? Give your argument for why do you think it's not worth that much, and what's your arguments against. And once people are able to at least share that honestly, no politics involved, no um, uh, yeah, no like worrying about like hurting someone's feelings, or you know, which I do think, yeah, I mean, that's the, I think, one of the challenges. But uh, yeah, okay, so Mel says standardized agreements need to be drawn up and signed by each party. I think that's good, and the blockchain allows that to happen very easily. Mel, once people kind of on paper uh, agree to something, that's, we could easily put that on the blockchain, and that would be like this immutable track record of equity allocation. And you know, and it's not so much an agreement like with details. It's just like, okay, hey, we have agreed on this equity allocation, and that's like this if it's entered in and there's no dispute about that entry, then then everyone's happy. And then Justin says exactly, you know, so radical transparency is important. And then Justin says exactly, and the group can try to negotiate. Worst case, members walk away. At least it's not manipulated or forced. So yeah, when we're open and discussing these kinds of issues and hashing it out, people can always walk away. I mean, if they're not happy with something, they can just walk away early. What happens far too often is people stick around, think like, have different expectations from everybody else, and then down the road, when there's actually the you know compensation, they just, people get upset, and they're like, oh, you know, I should get more or less, or more, and people say no, and then they break up, you know. So that's what happens. So having an honest, open conversation early on is incredibly important. So radical transparency, Ray Dalio, that's kind of a key. I think he'll be a key thought leader in this space, I think, hopefully, and that'll that'll catch on. So
do you know what will be great, like in the future, is that when these projects are getting underway, there will be liquidity in the system through utilizing things like Bancor algorithms, where you don't necessarily need to have buyers and sellers at any given time because it's handled by kind of a system contract or a smart contract, sorry. And that'll mean that even if you're like it's really early on and like the system's still being built, there in theory will be some level of liquidity. So if you are not liking the way the project is going, you can sell and leave basically. And other people within the project might buy your slices using a stable token or whatever ends up being kind of the token of choice, like the general token, which I assume will probably be a stable token, or maybe people will use like the network's token, so like the EOS or the Telos of the network that's already there and already got its market. So that gives a lot of flexibility to get involved with projects, and then if they don't go right or you want to move on to something else, you could sell out still.
yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of times it's maybe an early founder that has a large stake, regardless of how they split it up early on. But let's say a founder, like there's some struggle with a founder that's just not involved, but has like a lot of the stake. So with liquidity, you could just encourage them, hey, just sell out your shares. There's a market for it. It's just better not to have so much control at this point. Rather have other people who are wanting to build, kind of continue to build on it, just kind of be more motivated by the shares. So yeah, I do agree that the liquidity definitely helps. Bancor algorithm, I like. I had to look into a little bit more detail about like pricing is always kind of how to get that right. I like the free market version. Bancor might be a good alternative. I just had to see if how that is. So hey, Justin, have a good one. So we're probably about an hour 10 in. So let's maybe for the last 7 minutes or so, maybe we'll go up to 115. Like talk about like future one. I mean, I kind of indulged today because I'm trying to figure these things out. So I figured, hey, it's great to get feedback from you, Justin, and everybody else on the call. But yeah, for future, what do you think we should discuss in terms of tokenomics and DACs?
I think next week we could probably take a look at another tokenomic model that's out there at the moment. We could actually go over some of the hackathon finalists. That would be interesting. And of course, the NuGet, which one actually sort of involves this topic of splitting up equity, or rather, I think they're intending to use stable token or EOS to begin with. But for those that don't know, NuGet, the winner, who actually myself and Jun know all the members, they all go down to attend events with us. But their idea is like a decentralized GitHub where you can easily put bounties, I guess, on achieving certain kind of engineering tasks. So that modularizing an application and getting people to work on that specific component, having the money held in a smart contract, and once it's completed, that money can be the work can be approved and the money gets distributed. So that's an interesting kind of tokenomic model we could look at. But yeah, there's a number of really cool ideas that came out of the hackathon that we could take a look at. And other than that, I'm not sure. There's too many options, really. What are your thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. This just analyzing the hackathon winners tokenomics, especially this past one, because there was the theme was really about incentivizing shareholders and our stakeholders and the organization, I think, right? And employees are just trying to align incentives. That was kind of the theme of the hackathon. So most of the projects people built were around that concept, so the decentralized GitHub with NuGet. There was another one project about I think peer-to-peer delivery, or right, I think locate. And then the third one was a 6 degrees, which is which I actually like. It was like getting compensated for referrals, essentially, with connections. So you get paid by almost like introducing someone to others for a particular job or any other reason. So and using like crypto as a way of incentivizing that. So anyways, those 3 projects, yeah, I think those are great winners. So 2 of the 3 we were part of our meetup group, so which is great to see. And the first and third, and so yeah, I think it'd be good to analyze them. So Dan, I'd love to know when Dan Larimer will release his next big tap in social media, probably Steam It 2.0. Yeah, we need great ones. We also have to build them ourselves too. I think we got to kind of start building these projects ourselves. So yeah, okay. So maybe we'll try to. Maybe we can try that. I'm wondering though. It's just like evaluating like companies that we kind of know is like maybe a little bit. Yeah, I'm like we'll think about that. Maybe
delivery one. We don't know theirs.
Yeah, and they're still competing too, because they have a grand finale on the 7th of December, and so I don't know if it's gonna like maybe just help them focus a little bit more, like maybe do it after maybe the grand finale.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Maybe we should do that as like a grand finale special, like after that. That would be a cool idea.
Hey, I forgot to mention EOS Ignite, guys, and Justin, this is good. Like, so you guys participated in the hackathon. You had an idea. I think for whatever reason, you guys decided not to pitch your idea, but you did make progress, good progress on it. Yeah. We're doing a virtual hackathon right after the grand finale, which is so the grand finale official Block 1 hackathon is December 7th. The 8th and 9th are it's a weekend. And I'm hoping that you and everybody else who participated in past hackathons could continue their project for another 24 hours, and we could have another contest. Yeah, pitch contest. Good. Yeah, because there were a lot of great projects that unfortunately just didn't make the cut. I think that the winners were fantastic, but there were other ones that that I thought, oh man, like these are pretty good, and just I think to get a little bit of exposure, and also it'd be fun to just do this virtual hackathon where they can actually try to make a little bit more progress, maybe work on one feature or just complete their project if they didn't, and then just have a little contest and have some judges and this go from there, and prizes too. So if Blocksmith wants to contribute a little bit to the prize pool, that's what I'm hoping for as well. So that's the 8th and 9th. That's what we're shooting for. It's coming up soon. But what I'm trying to do is really just reach out to everybody who participated in the past hackathons. Like, so San Francisco is the easiest because I know a number of people that have, but I think I could identify somehow people who participated in past hackathons and just try to reach out via email to them to see if they're interested. And so hopefully we'll get a handful of companies, maybe hopefully 30 companies, 50 to participate. So
yeah, I think that's an exciting idea. I think we should definitely do that. So, I'm already raring to go for next year. Like,
yeah.
Like, Yeah, I want to go through the hackathon experience again. I think it was fantastic.
Okay, so what did they give? Hey, hold on, guys. Like,
Okay.
so they gave this away.
Yeah, the block fun swag is. I
They gave
mean,
this away.
EOS swag anyway is amazing.
They gave a nice backpack. I actually needed that. They gave a power charger. They gave like a coffee mug, a flask, a notebook. What else did they give? They gave like a toiletry bag, a t-shirt. Like, what else did they? They just gave everything, and this, of course, this nice Patagonian jacket. So
It's really smart when you think about it, because they give away all this high quality swag.
it's very
And
high
you
quality.
see it. You see people wearing it all the time, like, because it is high quality.
Yeah.
It's just to show like the power of that. But I can imagine, as these token economies spin up, that might be part of what they do, is that they allow people to buy swag for X amount of tokens, like to encourage the promotion of that economy they're trying to build. So yeah, I'd love to do that inside a project. It's probably like a side thought, but I think marketing is important, even like in token economy.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Like, just give a discount on like, but high quality, so that people want it, and people, supporters of yours and customers and employees will yeah, just because people don't always think about it, like, hey, like, but if they're really excited or participate or contribute to a project, they would want to represent the company, and so if they have like a very nice swag to
Definitely.
represent,
And
yeah.
also, like, when you're working in such a decentralized manner, like you don't see many of the colleagues
Yeah,
you're working with very often, and even just like the small thing of everyone wearing the same thing, like seeing that on camera, like makes you feel part of a team, part
that
of a
is
group.
true. That is true. That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're overseas and like you might happen to see one of your, I don't know if you'd call it a colleagues, but you see them out in public, with the jacket on, and you're like, I don't know, it just brings people together. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes total sense. So yeah, that's something to always think about when building out companies and
Yeah, it's like I often see, obviously, go to conferences all around the world, and like other block producers, they're technically competitors, but we're all in it for the same thing. And just like to be honest, like they actually feel more like colleagues. Like, especially when you see them wearing the same EOS gear, it's just like we're all really one big family, aren't we?
true.
And everyone who goes to the hackathon, the builders, they're all really. It feels like we all work for the same company,
Sure.
but it's not a company. It's something completely new. It's like a DAO.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That's why the brand is important too. I mean, the logo, like this chestahedron, is like a great kind of just yeah, it's just a great brand. It just brings everybody. People create variations of it. It's a nice. Uh, um, and there's a story behind it too, I think. So anyway, so it's nice to kind of have that happen. So
Like, one of the great things about blockchain communities is that they're so open and welcoming. Like, there's no anyone can be part of EOSIO. Like, go to a hackathon, get some swag. You're part of it. No, but like, to be part of the community, all you need to do is engage. Like, and really, you're part of something.
sure.
It's a really good feeling.
True. So yeah, no, that's a great point. So all right, cool. So I think in the next steps we can just discuss maybe some, again, continue the tokenomic I guess evaluations and analysis white papers for other projects, maybe outside the hackathon for now, and then maybe we'll do the hackathons right after. Hope to see you at a $100 token party scheduled for next year in San Diego. I haven't heard about that $100 token party.
Is this when EOS hits $100?
Oh, okay.
I hope it does.
I hope so too, but you know, I'm kind of a little bit more like I'm battening down the hatches and just getting prepared for like a little bit of a winter here. So we'll see. But yeah, maybe next year, let's say, you know, maybe it's summertime or something. Like hopefully things will be kind of back and you know, people like getting excited and we're coming out of the bear market hopefully at that point. So all right, cool. Oh, Kent organized it. Okay, so there's an official party. So
I hope he hasn't set a specific date.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. It's just like, you know,
might have to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Like
he said summer. So okay, so he's maybe he's a bit of an oracle here. So that's his bet, $100 in summertime next year. So all right, cool. So I think we're good. Any other thoughts? We'll kind of just hopefully just keep doing this and evaluating things. I think this is like it's great for me. I learned a lot. Just get feedback from you guys. So
yeah, I think like with the market being so down and everyone being so bearish, I think the important thing is that we all keep going on and, you know, keep working out tokenomic models, keep building them, basically just keep building, because like I think you were talking about this a bit earlier, like it's, you know, we just need to put our heads down and keep working at this. It's all about building, and I think, you know, we're going to come out the end of this tunnel, and things are going to be a lot better. And I think a lot is going to get achieved in the meantime before actually people kind of look up and things are looking more positive. Like people will be shocked by how much actually gets done, because they'll walk away from EOS and blockchain for a bit. Like this is mainly the investors. And then when everyone's talking about it and the price is going up again, they'll realize how much hopefully we've completed by then. I think that usually happens in these crypto winters in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. It just as from a business standpoint too, it just makes people very focused on like the realities and also like what is needed. You know, what's like there's no kind of it's not cloudy anymore. It's like people are focused, like, you know, really figuring out like what works, what needs to happen, you know, and it's like just I think that mentality is needed where if we're going to go mainstream, like we have to focus on like just certain aspects and then so yeah, coming out of it, it'd be great. Like then I think all blockchain applications will kind of be able to kind of use the same ideas and really get you know, really start getting traction in many different industries. So all right, sounds good, Mel. I'll see you next time. Always great to have you. So I think that's it. So we'll wrap up and just I'll see you next week, guys. So
definitely, thanks for having me on, and good to see everyone here. We got all our regulars, and yeah, I'll see everyone next week.
All right, sounds good, Justin. All right,
okay,
take care.
Okay.